If you've ever felt stuck dealing with your child's meltdowns and just feel frustrated because nothing seems to be working, well, you're not alone. Today, we're diving into how you, as a parent, actually hold the key to real change. We'll talk about what's really going on during those tough moments, why emotional regulation matters, and how small shifts at home can transform everything for your child and your family. Let's jump in. Welcome to the Autism Family Resource Podcast, where we provide guidance and insights for parenting neurodivergent children. From Pure Hearts Therapy, I'm your host, Brian Keene. All right, welcome everybody to the show. On today's episode, we have Lisa Chan, who's a parent coach and a child behavior therapist expert. She has a decade of experience as a pediatric occupational therapist. She specializes in addressing complex behavioral patterns and improving high conflict family dynamics. Her approach focuses on understanding and targeting the root of causes of family dysfunction and offering strategic interventions. Welcome to the show, Lisa.
Thank you, Brian.
All right, let's go ahead and just get started. For people who don't know you, give them a little bit of background of who you are and why you do what you do.
Well, I guess you already introduced me, so everyone knows that my background is in pediatric OT. That's where I started my career. I worked in schools, I worked in homes, in clinic, and through that experience, I got to work with so many different kinds of families. Families of kids who have autism, ADHD, sensory processing issues. Many also too just had a lot of complex challenges going on within the family, and so just having that experience gave me so much perspective into what's really going on in, families today. What's happening in modern day families and what are the modern day struggles that people are going through, and it really just pushed me into doing more parent coaching. I found that a lot of families, parents specifically, they just did not have the support. I think that right now there is a lot of, you know, child-centered therapy whenever your child's experiencing struggles, which is why, parents send them to occupational therapy, speech pathology, physio, and the thing is, at the end of the day, everything is rooted back in the family and how supported every individual feels. And that's where I saw the biggest gap working as an OT. Parents would just come to me saying like, "I know you're doing a great job in therapy, but at home I'm still struggling. I don't know what to do."
Right.
And so that's where I really found my passion was to help people in real time in the trenches really, and to find solutions to make life better for the whole family.
Mm. I hear you. It's definitely. I think a lot of people will resonate with that because there is a lot of supports for the kids, but not necessarily for the parent, and they're probably the most important factor, right, in their child's progression.
Yeah.
With that being said, anyone who's listening to this, what do you think is going to be something that they can take away from this episode as we get into this discussion?
The biggest takeaway is really going to be the realization that you have more power in helping your child and helping yourself than you realize. I think that as a parent, when we see our child struggling, we turn to a professional thinking that they're going to, do their magic and quote unquote fix my child or give them all the things that they need. But really, what it comes down to is what you are able to provide for your child in how you support them day to day. That's going to make the biggest progress in a skill that they're lacking in. If they're struggling with meltdowns and tantrums, no amount of sending them to behavior therapy or even OT to work on something once a week, if you're lucky twice a week, is going to change it. It really comes down to how are you interacting with them at home when these things happen, and you have to know what to do about it. So I hope that in our conversation today, those of you who are listening are going to realize all the different things that you can be doing and how to actually apply it.
All right, I love it. So we're going to give them skills to kind of better interact with their child and help them grow and develop. So let's jump into it. Um, let's just start with one of them. What's the first thing that comes to your head? What's one skill that a parent could take away?
Well, I think the biggest one that I get parents DMing me like every day about is really around the meltdowns and the tantrums. And so I want to specify though that I'm not talking about like toddler tantrums. I think that toddler tantrums they're very normal. They happen for every kid. It's a phase that kids push back and they melt down, but it's really when your kids start reaching school age, so 4 years and above, where they're really still having a hard time managing their emotions, that they melt down. They just, like, lose their cool, they throw things, they throw themselves on the floor, they get aggressive. Those are the kind of behaviors that I'm talking about, and really, it's the skill of emotional regulation. It's a learned skill. It's not something that your kids are just supposed to know how to do. They learn it over time. It actually falls under this bigger umbrella, which is executive functioning. And that skill, executive functioning, is something that develops all throughout your child's childhood, way into their adolescence. So until their mid 20s, even late 20s. So emotional regulation is part of that. And so I want parents to realize that if your child's struggling with it, they haven't learned to manage their emotions, it's not a dead end road. It's a skill that you can start helping them with. And the first piece is what we call co-regulation. Co-regulation, it's really about how are you regulated? So what I see a lot, it's really during the meltdowns, your child is feeling lots of feelings and they're swirling out of control. And it's very easy to see your child who is like throwing a fit to kind of lose your own temper. It's a very big triggering point for us as parents. Like I felt it with my daughter. She's screaming and you just like can feel your blood boiling because you're rushing, you're trying to get somewhere and they just stall forever. So if you don't if you're not aware of your own emotions and how that's triggering you, it's easy to lose your temper and to yell, to say like stop doing that. If you don't stop crying, you're not going to have, screen time later and whatever. Use those types of threats to try to get them to stop. But the truth is, doing that is actually sending you into a state of dysregulation. And so, getting yourself into a place where you're steady, you feel grounded, you feel in control of your own emotions is the first step of co-regulation, and your child will feel that you're in a regulated state. And even though they might be still spiraling, right? It depends on their age. Like toddlers will still spiral for a while. If your kid is struggling with emotional regulation, they'll continue to spiral too, but you have to stay sturdy and grounded in your own emotions. And over time, your child will learn a pattern from you. So that's my best way of describing co-regulation. It is an extremely important part of helping your child learn how to regulate their own emotions.
Great. Let's do a pause there because there's a lot of great things I think you said there. One of them is when we said like tantrums, right? So tantrums are a thing, which is a behavior, right? And then you also mentioned executive functioning. For those who aren't aware, how would you describe executive functioning and how that relates to regulation?
For sure. Executive functioning is definitely not just a typical word that we throw out there. Executive functioning is really the cognitive processes that help us to plan things, organize things, get stuff done. So, if you think about it from your child's perspective, what's something that would require executive functioning? It could be something like getting their homework done. So, if you say, "Okay, get your homework done," well, if you break that down, what does that even mean? What do you actually have to think about to get your homework done? First thing is you have to recall, what did your teacher say was your homework? Did you even write it down in your agenda? Okay, go find the agenda, open the page that it's on, read it. Okay, you just found out that you have 3 math problems. Now, where's the math problem? It's in the textbook. Where's the textbook? It's in the backpack. And so you get the gist of it. a bunch of different things that lead up to actually getting that task done. And if your child struggles with executive functioning, they're going to have a hard time with pieces of that to actually execute it. And so what we end up seeing is a lot of kids, they stall. They just they sit back on the couch, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to do it." They start complaining, or you say it again and they lose it, or you've reminded them 3 times, "Get your homework out, do your homework," and then they just, like, completely melt down and just kick and scream on the floor. Well, that's also emotional regulation. So everything is intertwined. It is a complex, topic to understand because executive functioning has so many different subcategories to it. But in essence, how emotional regulation is connected to executive function is if your child struggles to regulate their emotions, especially when something is hard. If let's say homework is a hard thing for them, maybe academically they're a bit behind, so actually understanding the concepts is hard, then they're gonna feel more frustration, and when they feel that frustration, it's harder for them to regulate it, that they end up kinda tipping over to a place where they've lost control of their emotions, and that's why they start screaming, yelling, crying because you've asked them to do their homework for the 3rd time.
I love the way you explained it. I think, as an adult, we kinda have our own difficulties as well, and what that made me think of is, like, when you're procrastinating on tasks you wanna do, that work task or home task, and you just let that thing go, and then other things in our life happen. Maybe you're super hungry, so now you're feeling hangry, and then that turns into behavior like, "Leave me alone." It may look different for everybody, but I think, like, as adults, right, we kinda experience something similar.
Yeah, that's such a good point, and I think can give a lot of our listeners perspective that even us as adults, we feel what executive functioning is. It may not be at the level that our kids feel it, right? Like putting on a shoe, for a kid can feel like the hardest thing and they throw a fit over it. For us, it's not that hard. But just think about stuff related to work. If your work is something that requires a lot of thinking and planning, it's actually a hard thing to do. And we often procrastinate the harder things because it takes more cognitive effort. And we keep pushing it until we know the deadline's there and then the day before we're like cram 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 get it done, right? So but we have a motivation, we have a time crunch, and so that pushes us and we have more executive function skills that we can actually get it done. But sometimes we need that external pressure to finish the task. So executive functioning, it's constant. It's all of us will always need it. If you are someone who does stuff, which we all do things, you
Yes.
need executive function skills.
Okay, love that. All right, so we got the executive functioning skills. We got kind of how it affects your regulation skills and how they work together. And then you jumped into that first tool, which is co-regulation, which I believe in a lot. Now, I'm pretty sure you're going to lose some people because it's just going to happen. It's like, yeah, co-regulate, just be calm. Easier said than done. What's your response to that?
Right. Co-regulation, so it's definitely more complex than that. I think the idea of just being calm, it can throw people off. Like it's kind of it's a bit of an unrealistic view on it because if we just think that it's about being calm, then we can just like stay calm in the moment but then not actually be effective in the way we are interacting with our kids. So, yes, in one sense calmness is necessary, but you really have to get through the layers behind co-regulation. So, if your child is throwing a tantrum and it's triggering you, you have to get beneath why. Why is your child screaming and crying triggering you? So, a really common example, if you're out in public at the grocery store, your child's saying, "Mom, I want the candy." "No, you can't have it." "No, but I want it." And then they throw that fit and then panic, right? Like we all panic because we don't want our kids to have this meltdown in front of everyone. It's going to look embarrassing. We're going to feel judged and all those thoughts, and then so it builds up inside of us. And we have to ask ourselves the question, like, why is this triggering us so much? Because if we really get to the bottom of it, we're really we kind of see two, you can see two things. One is the panic is coming from the fact that we are going to be judged by somebody else who we don't even know. Like these are all strangers that we don't know in the grocery store. And at the same time, if we look at our child and we see, well, our child's actually having a hard time. They're having a hard time reconciling that they cannot have that piece of candy. Rational, probably not, but they are disappointed. They're feeling lots of emotions. And so if we get pulled to the side of, well, I don't really care about what my kid feels right now because I'm just so embarrassed. I need them to stop. Then we're going to go into panic mode. And then everything we're gonna do is gonna be driven from that panic mode to try to stop our kid, and that tends to escalate. Like, what we end up doing is, Stop doing that. Sit down," like, or, "Go over here and stop crying. No, we're not going," and then you end up dragging your kid out of the store, and they're crying, and it doesn't teach them anything, and then it creates a lot of tension if this is constantly happening. And so, we have to really then, take a step back and go, "Let's look at the bigger picture. What is really happening? My child's having a hard time. Can I put aside my own, feelings about everyone else who might be looking at me?" And half the
Mhm.
time, like, if I see another mom going through a hard time in the grocery store, I'm not gonna judge her. I'm thinking, "Oh, man, that's hard." Like, I get it. Like, when if my daughter's having that kind of moment, like, it's a really hard place to be. And so, you know, think of it that way. There's a lot of parents out there that understand how you're feeling, that can give you some peace to then go, "Okay, my child's having a hard time. What do they really need from me in this moment?" Bending down to them, looking at them, understanding, validating the feelings of, "I get it. I know how much you want that candy. Right now is not the time for the candy, but you know what? There will be another time where we can get candy like this. So for now, let's put it back on the shelf." Right? And that can help us feel calm versus like a forced calm, right? We're told be calm in the moment, but you're still panicking about other people. It's comes off as fake. Like you won't be able to be calm in that moment if you truly do not understand where your child is in that moment, and if you don't have the tools to put those blinders up, which is essentially what it is. You got to put the blinders up, focus on your kid, don't think about the people around me in order for me to stay calm and then co-regulate with my child.
Mm.
So it was very complex, but that's in essence
No,
what co-regulation really looks like.
that's great. My big takeaway from that of what you said was huge is just like validating your child, right? But you didn't say you gave them the candy, right? You said, "I recognize you're struggling with this, and I see you, I understand you, and you're just really meeting them where they're at." Is that kind of
Yes. Exactly, and it's still holding firm but loving boundaries with them, because if we do give in, right, that of course is a third option out there, or whatever, second, third option. Give in, just let your kid have what it is they want, but what are you gonna be reinforcing there? Every time they cry and scream, they get what they want, well, then that's gonna cause other issues, right? And then that's how you start to kind of lose the reins on parenting. You're not teaching them self-control. You're teaching them that behaviors get what I want versus actually what your kids really need from you, from all of us parents, is they need your firm boundary. As much as they want something, if they feel you're being wishy-washy, you're like, "No, no, you can't have it, you can't have it," and then they keep asking, asking, and then 5 minutes later, you're like, "Okay, fine, take it," because you just want them to stop crying. What is that teaching them? It's teaching them that I have no idea what mom and dad are or what their expectations are anymore, because sometimes I ask and I get it, sometimes I don't, so now I just feel unsure, and that's actually a more scary feeling for kids is when they get inconsistency from their parents.
that makes sense. I think I read somewhere in a book that boundaries are kind of what makes a healthy relationship, whether it's, family dynamics, romantic, healthy boundaries. Without healthy
Yeah.
boundaries, it's not going to be there. And like you said, safety, unpredictability, that's huge, right?
Right. And this kind of leads into another area that I'm really passionate about, which is forming secure attachments. We all form our attachment styles in our childhood, and that is all formed between you and your parent. And so how you show up as a parent, if you are consistent, if you show emotional regulation to your child, that builds that security for them. They know that you're their safe place. But if you're inconsistent in the way you respond to them, sometimes yes, sometimes no, you don't know where the boundaries are. Is it here? Is it over there? That creates the insecurity, which is where a lot of anxious attachment styles, avoidant attachment styles start to form. And so ensuring like this is the prime time to build the foundation of your child's attachment for their future attachment in all other areas, all other relationships of their life. When they become adults and they start forming romantic relationships, when they start working and they have, relationships with colleagues and friendships, it all stems back to, did they have a secure attachment with you? Or was there some insecurity and now they're feeling very anxious? They're feeling very avoidant and they can't show their emotions anymore because it was shut down every time they tried to express it as a kid. So that's another big area that I focus on, especially as it comes to family dynamics, because that intertwines a lot in why I see a lot of families today that are, family members are clashing. Like there's a lot of disconnection, lots of yelling, lots of tension, aggression, stress in the family. It comes down to how is the attachment within everybody in the family.
This is great so far. We might add one more to it. So far we kind of got co-regulation and really making sure we see our child, understand where they're at and setting healthy boundaries. And then kind of that flows into what you said is that whole frame the secure attachment, right? As we set those firm boundaries and make sure it's a healthy boundary, we have a secure attachment. If there's one other thing, because it's great already, if there's one other thing we add to this conversation, what's another thing that you really find you're working with the parents that you see?
Another big area would be around probably social skills, actually. That's been a very popular, like a not popular, but a very common concern that parents have been bringing up to me is around, like, the social aspects of their child. They're noticing that they're having a hard time, like, making relationships with other kids. They don't know how to kinda, like, start conversations, maintain friendships. They feel very left out. So that is very common and also links back to some executive function as well. There's a lot of when it comes to social skill development, your child needs to have emotional regulation skills because if they're trying to play in the playground with the other kids and another child, you know, wants to play with them, they take something out of their hands and it upsets them. Then they get really upset, they blow up. Now the other child's gonna feel like, "Whoa, what just happened here? We're just playing. I was just taking this to play with it too." Yet this child is now screaming and yelling, right? Emotional regulation, and it's swirling out of control, which is causing the other kids not to want to play with them. So that's one aspect that I'm seeing a lot in the kids of the families that I work with. Also with social cues. So, like I said, a lot of the families I work with have kids with autism. And so typically, when there's a social issue, they have difficulties with reading social cues properly. So they might overanalyze body language. I've had some kids that really, like a parent could, let's say, just be saying something like, oh, you shouldn't, don't do this, please. And for some reason, they are perceiving it as my parent is really mad at me.
Oh.
And then that's impacting how they feel about themselves. They feel really guilty and sorry about it. and that's impacting their confidence and self-esteem. And so there's a lot of different trickle effects of things when it comes to social skill development that can impact a child's mental health and self-worth. And so it's important as a parent, if you notice that your child is struggling with these things, that you don't just leave it. I know there's like a lot of kind of advice on social media where it's like, well, you got to let your kids just figure it out. Yes, to a degree, but I also disagree. I think that for kids, especially if they're on the spectrum, even if they have ADHD, you do need to give them more support, because letting them figure it out, it's like throwing your kid into the deep end when they've only been practicing in the kiddie pool. They're gonna struggle, and, the more and more they struggle and fail at something, it's gonna affect their self-esteem more and more. So every time they're at the playground and they don't know how to interact with the other kids, and then they get shunned out, they get, no, they don't get picked to play in the soccer game that recess, and they keep feeling that over and over again. That's gonna affect their self-esteem, and that's gonna cause them to self-isolate. So how do we start giving them the skills to know how to start the conversation, how to interact, how to read people's social cues so that they can start participating? So that's one area around social skill development that I do focus on with families right now.
That's huge. My question is, or actually a request is, with that specific situation, can you give us like one tip or something that you've kind of worked with as a parent of how they would start approaching that, right? Because I think
Mhm.
a lot of parents are kind of dealing with that. I think that's pretty common.
Right, for sure. So a tip I would give parents is to start role playing. There is a there is so much power in role playing, because our kids, they don't just learn through you just telling them, "Oh, next time, go do this, this, and that." It's like, "Okay, sure, mom." Oof. One in in one ear, out the other ear, they don't know how to process that information, actually integrate it into real life. So, if your child's struggling with a particular issue over recess time, actually break it down with them and say, "Okay, why don't we actually play this out? I'm gonna pretend I'm the other kid. And, we've practiced a little bit on our own about what you could say. Now we're actually going to play it out. So we're playing out at recess time, and, I take the ball from you. What could you say to that person?" Right? And so that way it actually gives them the opportunity to play it out. So when it does actually happen, they've already gone through it, that they have some tools in their tool belt to actually help them manage the conversation in real time.
I love that role playing, and almost is like it might sound silly, but to me, it's almost like if we're playing a sport or we have a musical thing, we're practicing before we get to the real event, right? So we're doing our practice so that when it happens in real time, we're executing, right?
Yeah, exactly, and I think it's, like, for parents to have that mindset shift, because social skills, I think, when we were all growing up, this was not a big thing. Like, people didn't talk about, "How are we gonna get our kids to socialize?" Like, I think it's like I just feel like it's a very modern day thing about talking about socializing our kids. So it's not really in the forefront to go, "Oh, I actually have to help my kid build skills in this," especially if your kid does struggle with it, right? Because there are some kids that naturally pick it up. And so do you have to walk them through every social situation? No, they do figure it out. But what I am saying is, for the kids that don't pick it up naturally and they are struggling, they do need things to be broken down just as much as you are playing basketball for the first time. You need certain things broken down for you, right? Like, I'm
Yep.
no basketball player. You gotta tell me from step 1, what am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to stand? What lines am I allowed to cross? Like, you gotta explain it more clearly and explicitly for some of our kids.
Love it. I love all the examples you gave today. There's so much more that we could talk about. There's just not enough time. So thank you so much for talking about that. What would you say is one thing, one message that you can give away to parents who are listening right now that would be that we could leave with?
I would say, if you are noticing a struggle, seek the support that you need for your child and for yourself. So if you're noticing a challenge, your child's struggling in different aspects, whether it is regulating their emotions, social skill development, executive functioning, they're having a hard time executing different tasks, start seeking that help for them, because the earlier you can intervene, the earlier you can give them the tools on what they need to be successful long term. And the same goes for parents. If you feel like you're struggling in dealing with your child's behaviors and in your own confidence, like you feel like you're questioning yourself, am I doing the right thing? I feel so guilty for this. Like all of these thoughts, if they're building up inside of you, don't sit there by yourself thinking, oh, no one else is going through this. I better just not say anything and just push through, because I see so many parents do that. They sit there and they burn themselves out because you're just filling yourself with so much emotion and feeling trapped, not knowing what to do, that you can't show up. Like, it's hard to co-regulate. Like, we talk about co-regulation to help your child regulate, but if you're not even regulated yourself as an individual, it's going to be very hard to co-regulate with your child and help them build all these skills that we're talking about. And so the same goes. If as a parent you feel like you need more help, seek for that help, because truthfully, parenting was never, as I believe, as hard as it is right now. There's way more pressures that parents are feeling today in this modern world because of the fact that we can compare ourselves on social media so much more easily to other parents. We're in the most isolated society that ever existed. We have no, like most people, I would say in America, they don't have family around. We're all in silos in our own homes. Whereas before you had grandparents around, your aunts and uncles around to help you out with just cooking, cleaning. Now you got to do everything. And so parents are burning out, and then they just feel guilty for burning out, which is just wild. It's a wild situation that we're all in right now. So again, this is why I do what I do, to provide parents that support to help you work through whatever emotions you're going through and to help you build your own confidence. That's ultimately it. My goal is to help parents feel confident in what they're doing to support their kids, not to feel guilty in it, but transform that into empowerment.
That was great. I love that. For anybody who connected with you and resonated with what you said and really wants to learn more, how could they reach out to you? How could they find you?
So you can find me on my website. I have both coaching and a course all about emotional regulation on my course. And I actually didn't even ask you, Brian, if you're releasing this episode in May, because if you are, I do have a Mother's Day sale going on in May that your audience can fully take advantage of. My course will be on sale at 40% off and all coaching packages at 30%. So it's put that out there in May.
Okay, definitely.
If you also want to find me on social media, so I'm on Instagram, I'm also on YouTube, Threads, and Facebook, and my handle on all of them are Lisa Parent Coach.
Awesome. Lisa, parent coach. Well, thank you for this amazing conversation. I got a lot out of it, so I hope that our listeners got a lot out of it and that they appreciate it. So thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you so much for having me.
I hope today's episode gave you a fresh perspective on how powerful your role is in helping your child thrive. From building emotional regulation to create secure family connections to strengthening those important social skills. Remember, the resources we share here are all about empowering your child and your family to grow in every part of their life. Learning and growth are a team effort. It takes support, it takes community, and you don't have to do it alone. So let's connect. You can follow and reach out to me directly through the Pure Hearts Therapy social media pages. Just scroll down in your podcast player to find the links, or simply visit pureheartstherapy.com for even more resources, tools, and support. Thank you so much for listening to the Autism Family Resource Podcast. Subscribe now so you don't miss out on any future episodes filled with real conversations, practical tools, and encouragement to help your family live your best life. See you on the next one.